Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Stan coming to you from Gainesville, and today we discuss what's in your color palette, the number one skill you need above all the others. Can I get my MFA done in 2 years? And when do you need to hire more help? All on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Welcome, everyone, to episode 281. And today we have the Holy Trinity of Stan, Steve, and David for you. Woohoo! Hey, last week's show was totally awesome. We've gotten a lot of letters, and one has come, by the way, that we're going to talk about in a second. But first, some news.
Uh-oh.
Well, first of all, on the lighter side, we have a new LDI Light Talk time. So normally we do the live LDI show on Friday at 4 p.m., but because I have another engagement on Friday, then I can only get to LDI on Saturday, so we're going to do it on Saturday at 4 p.m., So just check it out, and we hope to see you there. And I think we're going to have some fun with this year's swag. Do you guys have any ideas for swag?
I heard it's going to be fun, but I have add one little tidbit of news that I wasn't sure I could do. I'm coming this year. I wasn't sure I could make it, but I've even got a flight booked, so I can't get out of it. But I did buy cancellation insurance. But I'm coming. So the Holy Trinity will return. Stan, I will brave the virus. I don't have, heck with you, COVID. I'm coming anyway.
Yeah, I have a very important question to ask you. Are you going to be wearing your fez and your smoking jacket?
I have a beautiful silk kimono given to me by a Japanese student.
That's will not that fez.
Work? I also have a silk bathrobe that's embroidered with a dragon. How's that?
No, that's the wrong culture. We're going Turkish this year.
Turkish. I have a Turkish rug. I can wrap myself in that.
There you go. Okay, we'll have to find you a Light Talk fez. Steve?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around Stan in a see-through kimono with a dragon on the back.
The kimono's not see-through.
So in other words, we're going to do a Light Talk After Dark episode at LDI.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Like, who's bringing the Playboy bunnies? You can't do that anymore.
I've been thinking about the swag giveaway for LDI. It's in Las Vegas. I keep looking at Lake Mead. I think we give away bottled water this year. Or we just get like big bottles of water and you each get a swig.
Sounds exciting.
It just passes around the room.
I thought you would say go tubes. Like inner tubes, and we all go tubing on the what's left of Lake Mead.
There'd just be sand and corpses. That's it.
Yeah, they have unveiled some, right? Unbelievable.
The shallower it gets, the more crimes are solved. But today we also have letters to Light Talk Central. Okay, so we got a very disturbing letter today, which is why we're doing it today. It is from our wonderful, wonderful paralegal Snoot. And, I'm a little upset.
I love Snoot.
Well,
Snoot is the best.
Snoot wrote us a letter. Apparently, she feels so, abused, I guess it is, that she can't talk to us in person.
That's not what she tells me, and I talk to her all the time.
But listen to this letter, and then we can talk about it. So this is from our dear Snoot. Dear gentlemen and occasional ladies, this is your so-called cute little paralegal Snoot, and I have a bone to pick with the gentleman, and I use that term loosely.
Ouch.
For the past 6 years, our legal team of Fleck, Flock, Flare, and Glare has stood by your side, advised you on questionable podcast content, and bailed you out of several quite sordid situations. And during all this time, I ask you, have I ever been anything other than strictly professional in our encounters? I am a highly experienced, extremely competent, prestigiously educated legal professional who has perhaps single-handedly saved you from extreme embarrassment, career annihilation, and hundreds of thousands of lost lawsuit dollars. But from what I heard on episode 279 of your Bane, recondite, obtuse podcast, you seem to see me as, quote, cute and little. While de facto, I may be only 4'11", and I am undoubtedly cute, I do not appreciate being objectified and demeaned by 3 old, decrepit, and intellectually flaccid men. What about Flecht? Did you mention his chiseled jawline and sculpted abs? Not a word about Flock's baby blue eyes and bulging biceps. Did you reduce Flair to the tall, dark drink of water that he is? No, you did not. And don't even get me started about Glare. That man is so dreamy that I can barely control myself during briefings. Sometimes I just want to pin him up against the stacks of journals in our law library and debrief him. But that is not the point at this moment. So my dear Lumen Brothers, I am officially serving you a cease and desist notice based on your insensitivity referring a serious professional as a cute little plaything. Please show me the respect and professionalism that I have shown you, or I will be forced to file a hostile workplace harassment lawsuit against you, and the day when your retirement funds are depleted may be in the near future. Toodles, Snoot. Wow.
Wow.
Well, you know, she's got a point. You know, when she was at Yale, she was the only female law student that was invited to join Skull and Bones.
I did not know this.
She, you know,
now wait a minute.
she's got some chops.
Oh, she's wonderful. But I don't understand what she's saying.
I have questions. Was I on that episode
yes.
that she is?
279 yes. You were on. Not last week, the week before.
Well, which one of us is responsible for these terrible statements?
Those words were actually spoken by you, Stan. But she's ganged all of us together because obviously she feels abused by all of us. So,
well, I have a bone to pick with Snoot.
Okay.
So she was supposed to file our trademark extension.
Okay.
And I don't think she did it.
Oh, well, I mean, what does that have to do with this?
Well, you know, she's usually extremely competent, very on top of it, impeccable. And the trademark is expiring, and she has not paid to the patent office what she needs to do. And what do we pay her for anyway?
But that's not what you were talking about here. She feels abused. She feels that there's harassment happening. And I believe it's because
of me?
Yeah, I don't know if it's you, but all I know is that she quotes, what'd she say? Cute, small cute or something like that. Little cute. We use the words little and cute. But I think it's a bigger thing. I think this has been going on for a while. And I think we just need to be much more sensitive, the 3 of us. We can't lose Snoot. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Flecht, Flocked, Flare, and Glare, they've written us off. No one even talks to us anymore. It's Snoot who talks to us. And now we've got a problem with Snoot.
Well, if she would pick up the phone, I would be happy to apologize.
All right. Well, okay, we will get that happening. All right. We'll make sure that happens.
All right.
But I think it's all of us. I think we all need to apologize. Stan, I'm not going to throw you under the bus because it's obviously a bigger issue. You know, she just brought one thing up. Very sad. It's very sad.
Did we pay her retainer last month?
What? She gets minimum wage.
No,
Snoot gets minimum wage.
Well, there's a problem.
And she gets leftover swag. She
gets swag. Yes, she does get the swag, but she's not on any medical.
We're not paying her right.
She has no medical return. I mean, we need to take care of Snoot. Okay?
I agree.
Maybe we'll have her on the show for a minute.
And she takes care. Oh, she's really going to take care of us.
Well, I got an idea. Let's bring her on the show next week, and then we can talk to her on the show.
Are we going to record it?
No, we'll just bring her around on the show and see what happens.
That's what I'm saying. If it's recorded, could be used against us.
It's not going to be used against us. You just have to be sensitive and not say anything bad and apologize. That's all. We'll all apologize to Snoot. Okay?
For what are we? Okay, I don't know what we're
Obviously, she's upset about this. I think I know.
Well, I like her.
Of course, we like her. We like her, but some people don't like to be referred to as small. All right. I mean,
I was referred to that way my whole life.
Yes, but did you like that? You don't like that.
How I became the crazy person I am.
All right. Well, let's talk to her. Maybe we can get her on the show next week or in the next couple of weeks, and we can figure it out. But Snoot, we love you. Okay, that's the bottom line, and we're sorry. So let's get started. Steve has our first listener question.
Yes, and it comes from Wanda in New Zealand. And she writes, how do you select your color palette? Okay, this is an easy one. I look at what the set designer is doing. I look at what the costume designer is doing. I look at my research. I listen and take notes with my conversations with the director. Sometimes the playwright's involved. The script is the foundation. So I look at all the resources. I look at what the team is bringing to the table, and that's where I start my color palette work. What about you guys?
I think you sort of hit my point, Steve. But I had a couple of tongue-in-cheek responses. I had scenic and costume and all of that stuff as number 5, but I wanted to joke and say I used the Jackson Pollock method, and I just throw a bunch of paint on the canvas and see what comes up.
I know some designers who do that, actually.
But, well, there's something to be said for reckless abandonment, in art. And then that led me to think about sometimes it's purely intuitive, but intuitive comes from somewhere. So I like the idea that you filled the bucket, so to speak, with all of those things that Steve talked about: the script, the conversations, the notes, what the costume palette is, what the set palette is, and all that's going into the bucket. And then I sort of rely a little bit on intuition, somewhat, because I think intuition is not random. Intuition comes from experience. It's actually intelligent. And then I will sort of wait for that intuition to sort of percolate. And sometimes it comes through in a dream, or wake up with something happening at the subconscious level. So dreaming is part of it. And for me, listening to music, either connected to the show or random to the show, but yet then colors and combinations of colors come to mind. Might be sitting with the script, might be looking at the renderings while music is playing. And then I might zero in on a piece of art. Right, visual art, and if that kind of comes up, then I might start to use that Adobe thing I talked about once before and pull colors from the art to create a palette. That's sort of my haphazard mishmash method.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything else to say. So Janine from New York asks, what would you say is the most needed skill as a theatrical lighting designer? Wow. Well, okay.
The most needed skill, is that the question?
The most needed skill of all the skills that you need to be a theatrical lighting designer, what is the most needed skill?
Wow. I'm not going to say yet what comes to something came to mind very quickly for me, but I'm really curious to see what you guys have.
Well, I think the big hint here is theatrical, right? And because for me, if you're working in the theater, you must be able to collaborate. Above all else, you could be a total ignoramus when it comes to being a designer. But if you can collaborate, at least hopefully something will get up there on stage. Even if the director's saying, "No, blue, I want some more blue," they okay, I'll do blue. but no, I mean, you could have all the skills in the world, but if you can't collaborate, forget it. Ain't gonna happen. But I listed a bunch of them. I mean, obviously script study, collaboration, imagination, musical sensibilities, color palettes and mixing, technology, creating cues, transitions. Being able to change things, don't get too precious with your work, and be ready for change if that's what the show requires. Throw out great ideas if there's a better idea. I think there are tons of them, but I think if you can't collaborate, you might as well just forget it. Because I've had some students, this is the interesting thing, Stan and Steve, and I'm just curious what you think if you've run into this before. But have you ever recruited a student who had all these amazing skills, had great eyes and all that other stuff, and, were great programmers, whatever you look for in a grad student. And when they get to school, they can't collaborate. They have a hard time working with other people. I know it's happened to me. Has it happened to you guys? Hello?
No, not that specifically.
Really? So every single student you've had were good collaborators right off the bat.
No, good is the spectrum. They certainly get better.
Oh, of
But I
course. Of
haven't.
course. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
Yeah.
people who could never collaborate. People who are just
I-
totally
No, I haven't had.
incapable
I haven't
of
had.
collaboration.
I cannot offhand think of something like that dramatic. No.
Steve?
Yes, and it's not what you think it is. I think the problem with collaboration with lighting students is that we ask them to perform in front of a room full of people during the tech and the cue writing session and the dress. We don't ask the set designers to do that. We don't ask costumes to do that. You know, we ask that a little bit of projection. We ask that a little bit of sound. But for lighting designers, you're showing everybody in the room, whether they care or not, your work. And sometimes it's not very good. Sometimes it's quite good. But that is a lot of pressure on someone. So I don't know if it's collaboration. I think it is just sitting there in a room considering the impact you're making on everyone in the room. And probably there's 100 people in the room and 99 of them don't care what you're doing. You know, it's just the director maybe who's sitting there really who has an opinion. But you know, what I find with young students is they want to work by themselves in the room. They don't want to solve problems in the room. They want to, and I understand solving problems in the room, you've got to be kind of fast to do that. Mm-hmm. And you are trying to learn a skill. So it's a tricky dance that lighting students make. But I think the number one skill is, what I need to do is take every lighting design student I have and send them across the pond and let them kiss the Blarney Stone. They need to learn how to be eloquent and persuasive when they're presenting their ideas. They need to know how to communicate with the room. So maybe that's collaboration if you want to put it in that boat. But a lot of times lighting design students just sit there, young ones, like a bump on a log, and they're waiting to be told what to do. And a lot of them have come from environments where the director has told them what to do. So they come in, they have strong programming skills because that's what was needed of them as an undergraduate. Maybe they have an idea or two, but the technical director is walking up and saying, okay, we need to do this, and no, we can't, change the set for you. Or the stage manager is saying, work faster, we can't wait on you anymore. So I think the ability to actually suspend the production for a moment, have a conversation, not a confrontation, but okay, this is what I need going into cue writing sessions. This is what I need going into tech. Oh, this is what we talked about 3 days ago. You said you were really interested in a blue cyc behind the scene. And it's not about, you told me you wanted a blue cyc and now you want something else. It's, let's have a short conversation about, okay, you don't like blue. What are you thinking? Oh, you're thinking warm. Well, here's where I'm building the show towards. So if we go warm now, 2 scenes from now, we're going to be in trouble. And it's simply being able to talk about their design, talk about their process, present their ideas with some confidence, and then stick to it. What the decisions they and the director have made. So I think it's communication. I think that's the number one skill.
Well, I got something to say. It ties into everything Steve and David have already said. But what popped, and I didn't think about this question in advance. I haven't had time today, but this popped into my head immediately. And I think it captures the spirit of a lot of what's being said. The lighting designer, as Steve points out, I would just say they're in the eye of the hurricane, when they're in that room. And the number one skill that I think they need is diplomacy. You really got to be a diplomat and to achieve all the things that the persuasion, the collaboration, you name it, all the things those guys said. Diplomacy is the grease of life. Diplomacy is how you navigate relationships, good ones and bad ones. There's diplomacy in the kitchen at the local restaurant. There's politics everywhere. So that you are sort of in the middle of a storm and you trying to calm it and land the plane or land the boat or whatever you want to call it safely and get your art up there as well. So I think if you're not diplomatic, it's very difficult. No matter how brilliant you might be, I think it's difficult to be successful.
I totally agree, Stan. You've won me over. Yes, I think diplomacy may be more important than collaboration, or maybe it's part of collaboration.
It's the same. Yeah, it's all part of it.
But really, I totally agree. You got to land that damn airplane. Very interesting.
Luis from New Mexico asks, how do you know when you need to hire more help?
When you're drowning.
Yeah, thanks for asking because I'm struggling with this myself. And I made a couple of notes. So the first thing that came to mind that's kind of dramatic was you're getting this soft feeling in your gut that you might screw up. You might make a mistake. And so I think that's the first alarm indicator that I might mess this up, or I feel like I'm not giving the attention to everything that needs to be given attention to. The other one might be this, that you're spending more and more time making proposals, right, than actually working. You're actually, jobs are coming in and you've got to put together fees and contracts and all of that's happening more than the other stuff, more than actually getting things done. And or you don't have enough time to send people a bill, right? Or sign the checks and deposit the money that's coming in. So when that starts to happen, you're going, I need some help. And I had this today. Somebody asked me for a section of something, and I went, yeah, we can get you that. And so I had to, call somebody up and say, are you busy? Can you crank out a drawing for me quick and dirty? I need it in 2 days. So when stuff like that is starting to happen, you have to sort of say, I'm going to drown in this work and I better get some help. And so those were the three telltale signs. But the big one is I get nervous because I like to be really diligent about my work. And if I start to feel like I can't be as diligent as I would like, that means time for help or take less work. How about you guys?
Well, I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. The question is, though, you're a small business owner, and a lot of us are, we're running our own small businesses, whether you're working in architecture.
Freelance designer is a business.
Yeah. So it's kind of dangerous when you start taking on more people because then you're going to hope that this influx of work is going to continue. Because as employers, once we start hiring people, you're kind of responsible for them.
It's true.
And there's a lot of, that's a big responsibility. So you got to be confident that you're not going to have to let these people go after a few weeks. And that, we just don't know. I mean, whether you're a theatrical designer or an architectural designer, you don't know if things are going to continue. So I think that's what most people are wrestling with. They have a small firm, maybe they're just doing themselves. Like, I usually hire associates if there's like something big coming up, but that's, a one-off. That's not someone on my staff. So if you start having firms and you're hoping that things grow, you never know what's going to happen. God forbid when the next pandemic hits, you're going to have to start laying people off, and that is no fun.
You just gave me a thought. I remember being at Production Arts, which was by the time I got
a large
to
company,
Arts,
right?
It was a company. There had to be 30, 40 people working
big
there.
Company.
But what was interesting about the way they set it up, because most of the people who worked there were freelance designers, technicians, whatever. And they didn't just want to work in the factory that Production Arts was. It was it's a lighting factory, right? And not that they're manufacturing, but it's the factory
rental company mostly.
Yeah, it's a big rental house. And so those people all had careers. So what was interesting, now this is the 1980s when I was there, but they had an interesting philosophy. People could take a job, a design, a lighting supervisor, I'll go out on the road, And PA would say, John and Steve would say, yeah, you can go out. And when you get back, let us know. You have your job back. So they had an open door policy. So people could, so people who were in between gigs say, I need to work at PA for a month, because I don't have another job until April. So for March, you would work at PA, and then in April you would go out on tour. Then you come back, and that was a really great sense of community that they built there. It was kind of wonderful. But I know the feeling that you're talking about, David. Like, I don't want I have a colleague who has about a dozen people working for him. Those people, he's paying their health care premiums. They've got mortgages. They're raising families, and he feels the obligation to keep the work coming in. And then you might take work that maybe you really don't want to do because you've got a payroll to make. And I think people don't necessarily appreciate the notion of the small. Now, small businesses are sort of like, that's kind of code for certain politicians. A small business could be, over 100 people, under 100 people. That could be a pretty good sized business. But, it's a question about whether you want to grow and what your values are in your life. But I don't want to be that big. I just don't, because of the reason that David mentions, because of the responsibility.
Yeah.
So you become selective about what you take.
Well, I think you're getting back to the idea of the gig economy. I think it's very difficult. When I was doing a lot of touring, I had 3 people who worked for me, and they were very much gig, and it was based on the work that was coming in and the work I could give them. Sometimes if I had a tour going out and I needed a lighting director on the tour because I simply can't go out with each show, then I'm able to offer them X amount of weeks, let's say 8 to 12 weeks of work, and that's it. It's a whole nother world when you start setting up a business and you're going to have a full-time employee. So I think for most of us in the entertainment world, we're still based around gig economy because we're looking for a draftsman, we're looking for a programmer, we're looking for a tour manager, we're looking for that type of skill level as opposed to someone to come in and sit in the office every day and, try to find something for them to do if there's nothing for them to do. So I think I'd prefer gig workers. I can be more honest and more straightforward about what they're going to get. And then they can make a decision. Do they want to do it or do they not want to do it?
Yeah, same here. I think of, as Steve was talking, I was thinking of when we interviewed Al Crawford, who really built that company, Arc3 Design, and he had accountants and he had people working full time for him. And then people would come and, or like the production arts thing, they could leave and come back, but he felt the responsibility to those people. And I don't know what he's doing with that company because now he's working for City Theatrical, but his success basically, caused his company to grow and he needed all these people. It's an interesting challenge because it's the gig economy is good, but then some people want stability, and there's something to be said for having that. I have a student, for example, who just landed a nice job in architectural lighting in Atlanta, and literally right after he got that job, I got a call from a small theater in Tallahassee looking for a designer, and I recommended him, and he took it and he did it. And the director called me yesterday and said he was wonderful. I said, I told you he's wonderful. I'll have him back in a minute, but I need more designers. And so because will his full-time job let him go take that? He lives to light theater, but he's working in architectural lighting. And so there's that's the stability thing, but yet can they give him time to go take off a week or two and go light a show? And I think it's a challenge. Well, if you didn't already know, you are listening to this show called Light Talk. And today, Light Talk is sponsored by
Wham-It Corporation's
Transportable Tech Table Tranquility Spa.
During the recent COVID pandemic, for many of us, one of the unexpected skills we had to learn was how to focus and cue a show remotely via Zoom. Even though this was very challenging, there were some unexpected benefits. For instance, when lighting a show via Zoom, pants are optional. Some have even focused their shows while schwitzing in the sauna. Cueing your show while soaking in your hot tub has become a COVID sensation. During notes, you can even get your chakras aligned, and no one would be the wiser.
Namaste.
So now that you are returning to the theater, must you leave those pandemic perks behind and once again deal with those horrid smelly chairs and rough wood-faced tabletops? Keep your creative spirit alive with Wham-It Corporation's
Transportable Tech Table Tranquility Spa.
That's right. The
Transportable Tech Table Tranquility Spa
is a combination hot tub, sauna, steam room, and bidet that replaces your tech table and sets up in less than half an hour. All you need is to remove that row of seats where the tech table normally is, run a garden hose from the prop room coffee maker, run a 220-volt power line, and the unexpected pleasures of your quarantine returns. Are you experiencing tension from a transition going wrong? A quick soak in the mini hot tub will melt those troubles away.
Oh, I like those bubbles.
Is the director sending poisonous glances your way? Release those toxins with a good sweat in our infrared red light sauna. Just make sure you are lighting a show in a red palette or your cover may be blown. Having haze issues? Just activate the steam room feature to witness perfect beams of light falling onto the stage. A lot of us underestimated the euphoria that is found when we have the luxury of being kings and queens on our own thrones. Our lavender-scented bidet option makes you feel like you are traveling first class on the Concorde instead of your tuchus splashing around in residual prop man secretions.
Wait, what?
And our super deluxe model will fit you, your assistants, and the director inside your pleasure dome. Wham-It Corporation guarantees that no matter how crappy your design skills are, your directors will continue to hire you, or your money back, minus shipping and handling fees.
Talk about job security.
So go back to the theater and keep your luxuries that you've grown accustomed to with Wham-It Corporation's
Transportable Tech Table Tranquility Spa.
Wham-It Corporation, transforming the theater into your happy place.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sounds of those rabid monkeys prancing about the studio tells us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about how have the changes in workplace attitudes affected live theater productions and education. Now, what the hell does that mean? That means that post-pandemic, we have discovered, actually the whole world has discovered, but especially in the United States, that office workers don't want to really go back 5 days a week, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, they realize that they can be more productive at home. They don't have to sit in traffic for hours and hours and hours. And why must they go ahead and risk all that, you know, being in a traffic accident, showing up to work exhausted, maybe catching somebody's colds or worse? Why risk that when you don't have to do this? Now, a good friend of mine works for a very large music company. I'm not going to mention their names, but they used to go into the office 5 days a week. And this is a huge conglomerate. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people work there in this big building in downtown Los Angeles. Well, during COVID, like everyone else, they worked from home. And they realized that business continued. That meetings continued. That, matter of fact, nothing that they used to do on site could not be done via Zoom or some other software. So now they're asking them back. And originally it's like 3 days a week, but people, believe it or not, basically said, no, 3 days is too many days. So I believe they're going to cut it down to 1 day, but that 1 day is going to be when everybody shows up for that 1 day so that they can have like meetings in person. How has that moved into the theater? And can it actually ever move into the theater? What do you guys think?
Except it doesn't work for frontline workers. Like, I think there's like some office workers is one thing. I can just say for me, personally, it has been a net positive. And I could elaborate. So, because I couldn't go in because of my own situation. So, two things that we've done that I think were effective. When I teach software, and a lot of what I teach is in software, that has worked out to be actually better. And I'll say why. if we're having a conversation about the play or whatever, or something that's, a seminar like, I like sitting around the table with people, enjoy that. But if I'm teaching software, walking around the classroom and looking over the student's shoulder and only talking to that one student, the rest of the class doesn't really benefit from that. So the screen sharing capability that I have when I'm teaching software on Zoom is phenomenal. And the fact that I can take remote control over the student's computer and demonstrate not just to them, but to the entire class how to do something, I have found to be very effective. And also being able to annotate. If I'm looking at something, I can bring out the pencil and annotate on top of the screen and everybody's seeing it. So no one has actually lost educational value from me doing that, whether I'm in my office down the hall from where they are or whether we're in disparate places. I've seen that as a net positive, right? Now, the other piece that we've done, and maybe we've talked about this before, but we set up cameras in our theaters, high quality broadcast level cameras that I can control from wherever I am by logging into the camera. And I have found that the students actually like my feedback better
when you're not there.
When I'm not there. And in fact, I can zoom in, I can see what's going on, I can take the notes, I can hear the production, all of that's fine. And then at the end of the night, we get together, either a phone call or a Zoom or text, whatever, and I share the notes. And then they have an opportunity to, and if I say, well, tomorrow I need to show you this, well, I can show up physically or I can show up on camera and we can do that. But I think they felt more comfortable and more in their own without me being in the room. And so, and they didn't lose now you could argue, well, do I see exactly what's going on stage in the way I would see it on the camera versus being in there? Probably not. But I would say most of the notes I'm giving are not that subtle. Like I can tell it's too bright, it's too dim. You're not touching the scenery. There's shadows over here. I mean, they're chunky notes, right? It's not like change that 10 points. Okay. So I found it to be fine. And in some ways better. And for me, for productivity, if everything's rolling just fine, I've got this screen, I've got them on one screen and I'm doing something else, preparing for my class next day, making a PowerPoint, so it's more productive and they know I'm there. And they've even had fun. They dressed up the camera to look like Stan. They put like glasses on the camera and a wig and a hat, and it's like a skeleton. They actually made a joke about it, but I have found that all to be quite effective. But I'm glad. But I'm looking forward to being back in the room with people for other things. But some things don't have to really be there physically to be just as effective.
I agree with you when it comes to software training, Stan. I don't agree with you at all when it comes to mentoring a student in the theater, because there's a lot going on besides just what's on stage. There's a lot going on between the student and the director, and there's a whole feeling to the room. There's stuff going on with the programmer. I don't know how you can actually observe all of that, from your camera.
Well, I can spin the camera around and I can look at the director and the stage manager and I can hear them as well.
But wouldn't that be weird if you're a director trying to collaborate with a designer and then all of a sudden you see this camera spinning around in your face? I don't know if I'd like
students,
that.
I don't know. I think my students, I think they actually appreciated that they were flying the plane without me as a helicopter mom. And I think
I don't think it's a helicopter mom. I think you're observing and taking notes, and then later, like you do now, you talk to the student after, and you talk about certain things that you observed.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly what I missed. If there was that, like for example, last year there was a show with a lot of tension the first 2 days, because the team was not prepared, and I knew they weren't prepared, and I could tell they were going in unprepared. And they didn't do things that I recommended that they do. So me and my electrician, we knew in advance shit was going to hit the fan and we couldn't change it. And so we were prepared to fix it when it happened. So we let it happen. I alerted the director, it's going to be a rough 2 days. This shit's going to have to hit the fan. And when it did, we had some really great, it was clear in the room. I could see it. They were like the impatience, the frustration, it was all, I could read it all. Right. And then we had conversations afterwards and I gave advice and I said, here you are. You're where we knew you were going to be. You didn't do X, Y, and Z. Now you need to do X, Y, and Z and be ready for tomorrow. And it worked. And they did. No, but I think it was less, I'll just say this. It was less stressful on me because I had a buffer. I had that distance. I didn't not know it. I knew it. But I was one degree of separation emotionally from it. So I didn't need to be in the room to get the data.
Right.
Frankly, I got the data.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, I think each situation is unique. So what works on Monday may not work on Wednesday. I think a real problem that we face is the lack of collaboration and that lack of communication. So now I think Zoom is a real problem. I think, Stan brings up a couple good points about why it works, but I think there's also a number of reasons why it doesn't work. I don't think we want to be in an industry in which we're looking at our computer screens all the time and we're not interacting with human beings. We're simply interacting with a screen, and I can turn off my video and I can pull up, I don't know, Rambo 47 on my laptop and play a little video game while the sound designer is discussing about the third measure of the intro music to the Blackout. I think you got to have skin in the game. And I do believe strongly that as a lighting designer, no matter how good your equipment is, you're either lighting for the human eye or you're lighting for the camera. And they're two different things, and they both require a lot of skill. And I'm sitting there looking at a camera, at a monitor, when I'm lighting for television. And I'm not relying on just staring at what it looks like outside the camera. So I think it's a tricky dance. I think the software, yeah, that's good. I think zooming into a production meeting because you're in Chicago opening a show and you can't be in Minneapolis for the production meeting, I think all those things are good. But I think the more we isolate people, the more trouble we get into.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'll tell you right now, all the students that I've talked to, they want to be back in the theater with real live people. You know, they want to have their mentors in there and they want to have their colleagues in there. And they want to have classes. They don't want to have Zoom classes. Now, I totally agree with Stan about the software classes. Actually, I think it's an advantage. If you don't have the equipment in your lab to share everyone's screen immediately and throw it up there onto the main screen, where a lot of our universities don't, then it's going to be better when you're on Zoom. But that's about it. The software, to me, is the only thing in education that may be an advantage.
I want to say something. I'm not suggesting that we should light remotely. I don't think for live performance. I don't think that should ever be a thing. But I would just add that as I think about coming back to teaching person to person in the spring, I think when I look at my syllabi, I'm going to dedicate which classes are Zoom based, which meetings, which will be software related, and which are face-to-face. I think it's going to be a hybrid in terms of teaching, based on what I view as which is a more effective delivery system. And to Steve's point, the zoning out issue for teaching, that's a real problem. And I think I can even see that in professional meetings where, when your thing is not being talked about, it's easy to go answer an email or something else. I think there's a date, and students have, talking about friends who have kids in K through 12, students who don't turn on their cameras, and you don't know you don't even know if they're in the room.
Right.
But I think Steve's point is well taken, that's a real danger.
It's horrible. We can't force our students to turn their cameras on. We were told by university administration, if someone wants their cameras off, then they can go off, and you cannot.
Yeah, I think that's a real that's a real dangerous place to go. I would agree that's not going to be healthy. So like any new, capability or technology, it's available for abuse, or it's available to, like Einstein said, let me quote good old Albert, no idea is inherently good or bad. It's the application of that idea.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on. And Steve has our last question of the day.
Tom in Chicago asks, how many hours should an MFA be? Or to put it another way, how many classes per semester? Well, Tom, you bring up an interesting point here. MFAs at one time were 2 years, and then they expanded to 3 years. I think Cincinnati was the last school to make that shift from a 2 to a 3-year curriculum. I mean, the question is, what are you training your students to do once they're out the door? And a number of schools felt very strongly that it took, 6 semesters to deliver that curriculum. So how many hours, how many classes? Well, 6 semesters, 3 years. I would say 9 hours per semester, or 3 classes per semester at minimum. So that gives you roughly 54 hours. Here at SMU, we do 66 hours. The thing to keep in mind that an MFA is a terminal degree. To put that in perspective, if you're doing an MA here in some field, the typical number of hours is about 36 hours. And then the PhD is roughly another 36 to 48 hours over that. So a low number for an MA to a PhD, which is a terminal degree, a low number would be about 70 hours. A high number would be about 120. So 90 is the average. I do think there can be a case, though, made that the MFA should be a 2-year program. And I say that because we're becoming more and more and more specialized. So do I really need to have someone for 3 years on my campus who is trying to be a scenic artist? Do I really need 3 years for someone who wants to specialize in draping? So I think the MFA, you'll see evolution in that too, depending on what you want the final outcome to be. You as a student, what you're actually asking to be delivered to you. What do you guys think about 2-year, 3-year MFA? Are we too many hours, too few hours?
I have something to say about this, and I'm going to make a confession. I think Steve makes some really interesting points, and I don't usually tout this, but since I'm at the end of my career, it doesn't matter, so I don't give a darn.
You don't really have an MFA.
Well,
or
I have,
PhD,
or
a BA.
I faked it all the way
Actually,
through.
we had a department that 3 of their tenured professors did. And it was designed, and it was this huge scandal. But go ahead, Stan. I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to tell you that yours truly has a 2-year MFA. My MFA at the University of Hawaii was 2 years. And I could have extended it because they would have let me take more classes, but I would have had to pay for them. But when I reflect upon that, at some level inside of me, maybe I always felt that I was an imposter, I was inadequate. I didn't do a 3-year MFA. I did a 2-year, but mine was not highly specialized, to Steve's point. It was broad. I had to take costume classes. I was more like maybe like SMU's in a way. I had to take scenic classes. I had to take sound classes. I had to take stage management, costume technology, Asian theater history, Western theater history. I took a lot of courses, but it was not a 60. So our MFA at Florida is 60 hours, 54 plus a summer, right? And I don't even know how many credits mine was, but I have an MFA. It's on my diploma. But it was a 2-year thing. And I'm trying to think if felt like I was cheated, it didn't get enough knowledge. I don't think so upon reflection. So I think there's something to be said for a reexamination of that.
I can't imagine fitting everything that you need to fit in to graduate education and giving the students enough laboratory opportunities where you can do a 2-year MFA.
Well, I didn't get so interesting that you mentioned that, because when I got there, design assignments were not part of your credit hours. It was above and beyond. And I argued that I should be getting credit hours for that because it was so much learning involved.
Yeah, but still, it's still only 2 years. I mean, if you have a full working graduate program, with like 4 or 6 lighting designers in there, that depending on how many shows you do a year, you only get a very.
Yeah, mine wasn't. There were really only 2 of us for the whole time I was there.
Yeah, but in most schools, you're going to have multiple, lighting designers or set designers, whatever. You just need that time.
Yeah, it wasn't as heavily populated back then when I was in grad school.
The only time I ever saw 2-year degrees was when someone went to another university, and it was a good university, and they completed the first year, and we felt that they got a very good experience that first year, and we'd give them 1 year credit, but that was extremely rare. Extremely rare.
This place had an MA also, right. But I wasn't there to get the MA.
So what do you think, Steve?
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point. If you are a lighting design student, there's an argument there that there needs to be a number of design classes. There needs to be probably a couple drafting classes. There probably needs to be a couple 3 or 4 software classes. There needs to be at least a minimum of a show designed every year. It becomes hard to pack it into 48 hours. Maybe there is a design program and maybe there is a technology program, and the technology program can be packed into 2 years. You also.
I wouldn't want to shorten mine, given what I've done here for the last 22 years. No, I'm talking about at UF, which is the 3-year, 60 hours.
Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine shortening it for all the reasons that you guys have mentioned, but it might not be a bad exercise to examine it.
Well, all I know, Stan, is if I was in your shoes, I would have taken that 3rd year just to spend more time in Hawaii.
Well, there you go. Well, that was my plan, because I made a lot of great connections.
You should have stayed, man. All right. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. If you want to join us and ask questions live on the show, then send an email.
Please do.
to stank@icloud.com. That's
give me something to do. Send me your emails.
stankaye@icloud.com. And he will give you all the information and all the information you need on how much you're going to get paid. Not anyway.
And a kiss on the cheek if you email me to be on the show. I will personally get on my bicycle, ride to your house, and kiss you on both cheeks.
That's kind of scary.
I know this is. I know Snoot is picking up the phone right now, and she's going. Stan has made my point.
Snoot has quit.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
let me just say that we have some trouble right now. So
if you decide to litigate,
the law firm of Fleck, Flair, and Blair are perfectly fine. On the other hand, Snoot, our paralegal, she's going to defend us like hell until our retirement funds are depleted, because she loves us.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you some more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, an officially trademarked entity, is broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Goodbye from Light Talk.